starting it off the first segment out the gate. Let's talk about Mr. Dana White again.
Your boy.
I know, my boy. Look, he's done the rounds to talk about upcoming fights, and he can't get away from the topic at hand, which is, why are your stars speaking out? Why are they saying they're underpaid? Is it true that you don't pay them? And he continues to go into we're in a pandemic. I'm trying to run a business. I should be applauded for everything that I've done. Well, when you really compare what the UFC is doing to the NBA, NFL, etc., MLB, those guys pay their players. Those guys split revenue 50-50, pretty close to half-half. The UFC's paying what? Anywhere from 15 to 18% of their revenue to their fighters. Fighters that are independent contractors, that don't really have to fight, that don't have guaranteed contracts. I mean, come on, it's not this. I'm not going to give you the round of applause that you want, Dana. I mean, what do you think?
I think they need a union, but you know that already. We've talked at length about it, but they need to unionize. I understand his point. Here's what I'll agree with him. Where he said, about Connor or whomever wanting to retire, he's like, if you don't want to fight, don't fight. I'll give him credit for that, because if somebody wants to retire, you say thank you very much for your service to the company, making us boatloads of money. We wish you the best.
But that's what Dana always does, is if you want to fight, fight. If you don't, don't. And you know what? I mean, that's an okay argument up to a point, right? Because the guys who are trying to get paid and trying to negotiate, and then there's guys out there that are like, I'll fight for a ham sandwich if it means the championship, right? I mean, you have these Brazilian guys that are like, I'll fight for 100K. It's more money than I've ever seen in my life. Let's go. And so you have guys like John Jones and Jorge Masvidal who are like, look, we need to figure out how to get paid and how to negotiate with the UFC as a league, similar to our counterparts in other leagues. And again, I go back to, then you have a guy like, Gilbert Burns, who's like, I'm going to just keep going. I'll take whatever you pay me, and I'll keep fighting and taking the fights you give me. And it goes back to the story that just broke this week about guys coming out and talking about Joe Silva and what an animal, what a dick he was to them. And the second that they said anything negative about the brand, or if they were just difficult to deal with, Joe Silva set them up, right? Joe Silva put hard fights in front of them, fights that stylistically they were never going to win, or they didn't fight for a minute. He put them on the shelf. Look, with the matchmakers in the UFC in general, if you are a team guy, they're going to take care of you and give you an easier way to the championship, right? An easier path. If you're a difficult guy, I've been in those rooms. I've heard Joe Silva talk. I've heard, Rich Chow talk at Bellator. I know what goes through these guys' minds. I know that they are looking at it and saying, what's best for the business? Is this guy a team player? Can this guy get us the marketing dollars and the pay-per-view dollars that we need to sell these fights? If so, this is how we're going to push them forward. If not, you're gonna face a lot of killers, and you better win every single one to make a public case to be able to get paid and to be able to move up.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine that happens. I mean, example A and B is the Diaz brothers. Amazing fighters, but definitely in no way towed any company line. I don't know that they've ever been at unless they have their own company. And, they took every fight thrown at them.
Look, let's watch a clip. Dana was on First Take. Dominique Foxworth, who is a former NFL player, commentator on ESPN now, and former union president, Players Association president, had a really, really good combative conversation with Dana. Let's check it out.
The Masvidal and Jones are interesting cases that I think you'll probably explain away, but my history in labor unions and sports in particular kind of makes me a little biased on this particular side. But if it were just those two guys, then I feel like I could get on board and understand your explanation, and I obviously understand how businesses work, but there's a long history of issues with the labor in UFC not feeling that they are getting just payment or the treatment that they deserve. So can you speak to the long history rather than the specific individuals?
Does anybody feel like they make too much money? Nobody does. These guys just, listen, if we were talking about a thing where, you know, these guys had old contracts from 3 years ago, and it's like, come on, that was 3 years ago that I did this deal. It's real. They signed these less than a year ago.
Right.
This was months ago. Oh, by the way, I don't know if you know this, but we're in a pandemic right now, and no other sports are going. Oh, by the way, every other sport out there is arguing over money right now. I haven't laid off one employee. I haven't asked any of my fighters to take less money. And you don't hear me out here crying about, no, I don't get any gates. I don't have this. I don't have. You don't hear me crying about anything. I'm running my business. I'm paying everybody. And right now, if you think it's easy to be a business owner right now, here and today, you are right out of your mind, okay? Because there's never been a harder time to do business than right now. Guess what? I'm pulling it off.
Well, you can't say you're not crying anymore. You just said it's a hard time for business owners, but I do think that it's important to understand that there's different,
I was just explaining. That's not me crying. I was just explaining to you.
The point I'm making is all right,
whining.
The leverage is different.
Crying.
So, like, saying that they just signed contracts doesn't speak to the leverage that they have in negotiation. Just because they signed contracts doesn't necessarily mean that the contracts are fair. I'm not informed enough to know whether contracts are fair or not, but I understand that when there's a track record of a number of athletes over a period of time having an issue with someone or a company, then that seems like a group that needs unionization in order to have the leverage to get the things that they want. I know Molly has a question for you, but that wasn't a question. I was just kind of making a point.
Oh, no. I want you again. Welcome to the fight business, my friend. And so right now we're in a pandemic and all this stuff is going on. Do you see me trying? We just signed a contract 8 months ago. You see me saying, oh, no, this is going on and that's going on. I have to pay you less money. Let's talk. No, I'm paying them exactly the same amount of money no matter what's going on. In the history of this company,
you're not paying them anything.
To go backwards ever.
I mean, that you could argue that suggests that maybe they weren't making enough if their pay is not an issue. But I'm not saying that you're having trouble, that we should applaud you. We should certainly applaud you for keeping your business running and not letting any people down. I certainly wasn't looking to fight you like Dan Batard. I'm not looking to fight you at all. I'm just bringing up the idea that there's another perspective
Max doesn't want any of it.
That makes perfect sense to me. Given my background, I understand how difficult it is to run a business right now. So we applaud you for all that. We applaud you for not taking their money down. But just because you're not doing anything bad doesn't mean that the situation is fair for them. And again, I'm not trying to be confrontational because I don't know the ins and outs of this business, but I do know the ins and outs of sports labor. And I know that when you have a bunch of angry, upset athletes, there's normally a reason why they should be angry and upset. So I was just speaking to that.
Well, again, I have 630 fighters under contract, and we're talking about 2.
God damn it.
Look, Dominique Foxworth's no dummy. University of Maryland, Harvard. Like I said, I told you it was all his credentials before the clip. That guy needs to help you at least connect these fighters to a guy who can help them form a union.
I think they just found their union head.
I think they did too. I don't know if Dominique wants to leave his cushy job at ESPN, but look, if he was educated on the contracts, if he knew the revenue share, the percentages, he would have had a lot more ammo to go at Dana White. Look, Dana White wants to be applauded for running the business, and I know you said, hey, look, I applaud you for that, but you know what? Like I said earlier, when you don't have to split the complete pie with your athletes, you can do this. It's not far-fetched.
Well, here's the thing. He said he's not having an argument over money.
It's always an argument over money with Dana.
Money with Masvidal, Jones, and whoever the hell else.
Look, he can't continue to say, oh, we closed this deal with them, and who isn't underpaid? Who doesn't feel underpaid? Yes, we all feel underpaid, Dana. But you know what? Every fight is a realization that I should be negotiating for more money. I mean, it's just like every year we go in with our bosses for review. They say, you did a great job. Here's XYZ percent as a raise. You have the opportunity at that moment to say, that's not enough. I want more. can you do more? Because I've done all of these things. All of us can do it. And Dana White saying that these guys can't do it is bullshit. And you know what? Jorge Masvidal has said it. He tweeted it this week. Look, when you negotiate with the UFC, it is here's your deal. Take it or leave it. And there's 99% of the guys that have to take it. And you know what? There's the Ronda Rouseys, there's the, Brock Lesnar's of the world that are like, they can negotiate because there's something there, right? They have a little bit, if they walk away, the business hurts a little bit more. I mean, Ronda Rousey at her peak was like that. Brock Lesnar, you could argue, brings in hundreds of thousands more pay-per-view buys if he fights in a pay-per-view. So they have that negotiating power. Conor McGregor as well. But these other fighters don't have that. And for Dana to say, this is what we negotiated, it's not okay when it's a one-sided negotiation. Come on, man. Quick story. I was with Brendan Schaub when we went to go sign his contract when I was still producing Fighter and the Kid. And we did a podcast episode from Dana's office, which was pretty awesome. Dana was very cordial and everything. However, I remember Brendan's, it's not like I had to really negotiate this. He's like, we showed up, contract was ready, and I signed it. It's not like he was like, I want $5K more for every fight. No. I mean, you know what Brendan was able to get out of his negotiation? Us being able to do the Fighter the Kid episode in Dana's office. It's like, hey, I'll sign the contract. I'll come to Vegas. Can I interview you? Can I bring, Brian Callen and we could do a podcast episode from your office? Can we do that? And that's what he got. So, I mean, come on, Dana. I mean, it's freaking ridiculous.
Yeah.
I
I don't know the numbers nearly as well as you do or have the insight that you do, but they've got to unionize. And if they're going to do it, there's no time like the present. I understand what's going on in the world, and it's unfortunate, but I think in some ways you have to separate it out if you can. You have to be like, look, we should have done this years ago. We need a union head or union reps, and they need to make – I don't know if they unionize across all organizations or if it's just a union of UFC guys and gals. Sorry, UFC fighters. Sorry.
I don't know. I mean, how's the MLB work? Are you in the union if you're in AAA?
I want to say yes, but I don't actually know. I know that you can leave the union because people have, even though they still play in the league, it just means they don't have the union protections. I got to imagine that every player, single A, double A, triple A, whatever, is a member of the union. Now, I don't know if there's like a voting share difference. I have no idea how it works. Because I've got to imagine, like, the Mike Trouts of the world, the Kershaws, that level player will have more clout in terms of swaying a vote if they needed to than, some rookie that was just drafted out of school, whatever.
Yeah, look, I mean, they need to get on this. And this is the perfect time to do it. You're in a pandemic. You have I think you have the UFC by the you-know-whats, and they need to fulfill fights. They have a fight number that they have to hit for ESPN in order to get the money that they were contractually promised by the network. So they need to put on fights. What's going to happen if they can't put on these fights? There's no fighters to show up. That all the fighters say, no, Uncle Dana, we're not showing up until we unionize and we negotiate a collective bargaining agreement. And you're not going to have this kind of leverage a year from now. So you better take advantage. All of the fighters better get on it right now. And you know what? I brought up Gilbert Burns and other guys from they can't cross the picket line. They all have to stay strong. If that means you got to go be an Uber Eats driver or you got to like hunker down in your mom's house on her couch, that's what you got to do, because you know what? You can't be short-sighted here. You have to look at the long play. And
that's what I
do want to, yeah.
This is not just a fix it now issue. This is a fix it now and forever issue. So it might not directly impact those fighters that are in the twilight or end of their career. But the up-and-comers or the people that don't even know that they're going to be fighters yet, it's going to impact them and maybe set them up for more success in the long run. I mean, we're talking, well, I don't know what they would negotiate, but, you've got insurance, injury stuff. And I say stuff because I don't know what all it entails. I'm not on the inside, so just a fan. And all sorts of other, like health, safety, whatever. I mean,
these all start at the gym levels. So I would say like, a Jackson, Jackson's like an AKA, an Alliance, all of these gyms need to get together, and these fight teams need to all kind of get on the same page, right? They all need to come together and agree to something. So maybe if 4 or 5 guys cross the picket line, it doesn't matter because you have a whole gym that's standing together, right? You have several of these, that's the way you do it. Because what's Dana gonna do? Just have a bunch of Brazilians fight that don't want to unionize, that will fight for a ham sandwich?
Well, that's an interesting point. You mentioned the gyms. I'm surprised that the John Jones, Masvidal, and whoever else is having the issues, I just don't know off the top of my head, hasn't gone to the people in their gyms, contacted the trainers, the coaches, and all the fighters, and said, hey, we're going to do this for the betterment of the sport. Please don't take any fights, or don't take any fights from them. I'm not fighting for them. And if we get this together, I don't think him and Masvidal train at the same gym, do they?
No.
No. So, I mean, that's 2 huge guys where if they told their gym, that's a whole stable of fighters right there.
They just need to get on the same page, but there needs to be somebody, and it can't be a guy that's buddy with Dana. It can't be a California kid, Uriah Faber. It can't be one of these. And I'm going to tell you right now, a guy like that's going to probably want to step up and do it. And you can't do it because he's a rat. Like, you can't put a rat in charge. You can't put a DC. I mean, DC, I love him to death, but he's in Dana's pocket. You have to put someone that has zero connection to the sport in charge. Dominic Foxworth. You need someone to come in who doesn't understand the politics of the business, and comes in and says, look, I'm looking at it from a pure labor standpoint. And what I need to do is have guys underneath me that can rally the troops, right? And then we need that guy to go out there and be outspoken, pound the podium, and really get these guys and gals excited about organizing. But I do want to show one more quick clip. Dana was on the Dan Batard show on the radio, so it's not a video, but let's take a listen to that, and then get a quick reaction from that.
You fight with Bones Jones over money and say that we're not going to get that heavyweight fight that we want, and you fight with a lot of your champions about money. So can we talk some money with you, Dana, as we promote this fight?
Sure. Yeah. Money is always an issue in all of sports. The difference is that when these guys go off and start saying things publicly, we don't go crazy and whatever. They all can have their opinions and voice them however and whenever.
Like me, who say your fighters aren't paid enough.
What the hell do you know? That's what I say to you.
That's always his defense. What do you know?
Well, but can you yap? You like the yap. You don't know anything about the business, and that's just your style. I just say, this guy doesn't know anything. So listen, every fighter that fights for me has the opportunity to go out and say what they make. They can say it publicly. John Jones isn't telling you what he made in his last 4 fights.
He's daring them.
I bet you wouldn't. I bet you wouldn't say that if you knew what he made. You definitely wouldn't say it. If you know what Habib made. And these women, the women that fight for us, are paid just like the men. So listen, if you want to make an uneducated,
all underpaid,
very uneducated remark like that, then knock yourself out.
But couldn't you educate me by just telling us what the money is?
Because I don't want. It's none of your business. If it was your business, and if they wanted people to know, they would say it themselves. It's not like they're locked on some kind of contractual thing where they can't talk about their money. They can all talk about their money. None of them want to talk about their money publicly because they don't want people knowing.
Well, he might not know that.
No, he knows.
The fighter,
that's their prerogative. And all other sports do a lot of things that I don't do. I'm going right now in the middle of the pandemic. I did 3 weeks. Other sports aren't doing that either. I don't do what other sports do. I run my business the way that I want to.
Do you think that you could, if there was a union for the fighters in your sport? Do you think you could
That's
have been?
That's up to them too. That's not up to me. That's up to them. If the fighters wanted to create a union, that's up to them. They don't want a union, just like they don't want to talk about their money publicly.
Bullshit.
Why don't the fighters want a union? Why don't they have a union?
I have no idea. You'd have to ask them that.
How would you feel about unionization?
Well, listen, personally, union guys, not much gets done when there's a union. But that's just my personal opinion.
How much can you tell?
None of that stuff matters to me. It doesn't matter to me. You know, listen, I've been 20 years ago, me and the Fertittas bought this business. We've been building it over the last 20 years. After the sale, you know, Ari and those guys wanted me to stay on and continue to run the business. I love this sport. I love what we do. So I'm here, you know, continuing to do what we do. We've made a lot of people rich, made a lot of multi.
All right.
I'm in this public feud with John Jones, like you just mentioned. Where can I?
All right, fuck this.
All right. Yeah, no more of that.
I'm 99% sure that it's in their contract that they can't say.
Yeah, I would imagine.
I'm pretty sure
that they can't.
Look, I mean, okay, regardless, am I going to tweet out my paycheck? Like, no. I think that you can do it in a survey. I think you can do a survey and say 100 UFC fighters were surveyed, and then this is their pay. That's what they're going to have to do if they're going to unionize, right? They're going to have to do some anonymous, and maybe someone's going to have to be bold and say, look, John Jones is going to say, yeah, I made $500,000 my last fight. You know?
Yeah, I think
someone's going to have to take that.
They're going to have to disclose to each other / to the union internally how much they have made, are making, are scheduled to make for those people that signed a contract, you know, a year, 7 months ago, 6 months ago, 3 months ago, yesterday, whenever.
Look, he can't continue to do this. Look what I've built. Look what I've done. Praise me. Look what I'm doing. He can't continue to do that and not answer the question, which is, what are you going to do about these fighters? I mean, He's basically thrown up his hands and said, if they want to fight, they can fight, which has always been his argument, continues to be his argument, and is not the best argument. And what's going to happen when they do unionize? Look, we've been talking about a union in MMA sports for years, and nothing has come of it. But like I said, this is the moment where they can leverage everything going on and say, I'm not fighting, who's with me? And, you know, the problem is, it's like if John Jones and Jorge Masvidal say, I'm not fighting, we need to unionize, who's with me? How many guys are going to jump off that cliff with them? You know, is John Jones, like I said, at Jackson's, is he going to be able to rally the troops there to say, all right, guys, I know I made $500,000. You made 20K. Are you going to follow me? Are you going to do this? Because the AKA guys aren't. So, you know, maybe I leave Jackson's and I go to AKA, right? Or I go to Alliance, or I go somewhere else, right? I go train them on my own and do my own thing. So I just don't know. I don't know if the fighters can get on the same page. I hope they do, because this is the thing that needs to break up Dana White's little mafia.
Yeah, look, I've got to agree with you, because it's time for them to unionize. They need to find a union head or union heads, come together collectively as fighters and go, this is for the betterance of our sport, it's for the betterance of us, it's for the betterance of future fighters. Betterance might not be a word, might have just totally made that up. Sounds like a word. It's time. Look, Dana, I agree, you helped and participated and built an amazing sport that's still in its infancy years in terms of time, longevity, and just where you are.
But you can't keep giving him credit for that. I mean, okay, great.
But, I mean, even from that, I'm starting to lean further towards your side of the fence on it's time for him to step aside. And I think if the fighters unionize, I don't know that he'll be able to and again, I don't know. I have no idea.
He steps away. He steps away.
I don't know that he'll be able to handle it because he can't be what he's been for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
With a union. The union will go, that's nice.
He steps away. Once a union comes in, he finds his exit. And he's like, I'm not dealing with that.
Yeah.
Hey, Ari, all yours. And he gets his golden parachute out and goes into boxing and does whatever he wants and competes with Bob Arum. And, you know, look, I mean, yeah. So I think it's time for the union to come. That'll be the catalyst for Dana to go away. Dude, if I had any legal background, if I had any labor unionization background, I'd be all into this. I'd be like, okay, I'm going to start making phone calls. I'm going to start, you know, gathering these guys and putting them together.
Well, you can. You don't need a legal background for that or a labor background. It just takes one person. All the unions were started by guys or gals at some point that had no background until they all got formed. Yeah, it might have been the 1800s, but
I'm not that guy. Like I said, if I felt I had the background to be comfortable enough to do it, I would totally do it because I feel like they do need someone that knows enough of the guys that can rally these troops and bring them all together. That's not just. But like I said, I also really believe that they need someone that has that background and experience because there's going to be a lot of navigation that these guys need to go through to bring them together. And it is very, very different than all the other sports, given that these guys are independent contractors. I don't know how you do it.
It's going to be it's going to be a tough road. It's going to be I hope they do it because I will be interested to see what gets released out of it in terms of it'll be the first time, I think in my lifetime, that a union gets formed. I think the NBA, NHL, NFL, and MLB union predate my coming onto Earth. Pretty positive about that. I guess there might be some acting or God knows what unions that were formed, but in terms of sports union, let's leave to sports. Well, MLS, right? That was in our lifetime. I'm assuming they have a union. But this will be interesting because look,
but again, you go back to these are teams. These are players that fall under teams.
Yeah.
It's all different. Like these guys are all, like I said, they're their own team. They are.
Well, what if you make the gyms they train at the team?
I don't know.
How do you handle that?
I don't know how you handle any of this, which is why I'm not volunteering.
The fighters themselves, I mean, it's going to be incredibly difficult, but I think the fighters themselves would be a slightly easier piece to figure out as a whole than the gyms, the training facilities, and the coaches, and how you handle that, because those coaches aren't fighting. Those gyms aren't fighting. So do you make those gyms like a team, like in, you know, the NFL, where, okay, this guy's fighting out of Jackson Winklevoss or whoever the hell it is now, or, you know, HB Ultimate or whatever gyms, AKA or Black Zillions or wherever. And then you also have the independents where, you know, they aren't associated with the gym necessarily. And then if somebody transfers gyms, it's fine. It shouldn't really impact it. Unless, you know, some gym has two champions, that gym might get a bigger cut of the pie. And then it gets shared appropriately. I have no idea. I'm totally.
Here's the look. I mean, look, the federal government doesn't care about MMA.
Not at all.
You know, they would step in at some point if this was an NFL problem. Look, let's stop talking about this. We got fights this Saturday.
Yeah.
Fights.
Happier news.